Hey there, it's Lacey J, here to ask you to go to spacebearmedia.com right now to access all our content, buy yourself some merch, and most importantly, send us a message, a question, fan mail, even hate mail. We'll respond on YouTube. Also, please remember to rate and review the podcast on your favorite app or share it with someone you know who loves Lost. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's Lost in My 40s, Season 5, Episode 17. It is the end of the season. It's called The Incident Part 2, and it's a Jacob episode, and it is, of course, a Derek episode. Second to the last time you're going to end a season, Derek. It's exciting.
Yep.
Yep.
Alrighty then.
The excitement is palpable.
Yes.
Boing. That's the Man in Black lock right now.
Lock.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Benjamin, remind us what the power rankings look like before we end this season and announce our winners.
Yeah, we had Phil climbing into the third from the bottom, negative 50 points. Ethan falling out of that. And Charles Widmore maintaining the second spot, negative 61 points. Ann Redzinski running away with the, most awful character.
With the loser.
With negative 105 points.
Yeah, we finally got rid of the kids. Whew.
Yep. Locke falls out of the top three. He had 72 points. Not sure where he fell to, but it's less than 60 because Juliet ended up taking the third spot with 60 points. Dan Faraday maintains his second place with 81 points, and Sawyer maintains first place with 133.
Whoop. All right. Derek, let's do it. Take us through the end. The Incident, Part 2.
All right. We're heading to the end. 1977 on the island. We're back to the last moment of the incident, Part 1. Jack gets out of the Dharma van and says, "What's going on, Kate?" She stays quiet, but Sawyer says, "Doc, we got to talk." Jack says that's fine, but they must get in the van. Sawyer replies, "I ain't getting in the van. I need 5 minutes, that's all. I'll say what I have to say, and then you can do whatever the hell you want to. But you're going to listen. You owe me that much, Jack."
All
Jack
right.
agrees to 5 minutes and puts his gun inside the van, and Sawyer hands his rifle to Juliet.
When he says, "You owe me that much, Jack," the look on his face and the tone of his voice, it's not commanding the way he is when he's like, "I'm not getting in the van." It's
Right.
more like, everything that you and I have been through, you can give me 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. To whoop your ass. But anyways.
So we go to flashback number 1 off the island. The exact year of this flashback is undetermined, but we're watching the event Jack describes to Kate in season 1, episode 1, as she's suturing him on the beach. While performing his first solo surgery in residency, Jack accidentally nicks the patient's dural sac.
Ow, you nicked my sack.
Ugh.
Do you know what the
do you do
dural
when-
sac is?
It's a nerve
I think
sack.
we discussed it that episode, but yeah, some nerves, bundle of nerves.
No, it's the sac that contains the fluid that surrounds your spine. The dura. It's the dura level. You have a dura matter level in your brain as well, and it extends down around the spine. So if you cut it, you're letting all your spinal fluid leak into your body.
Not a good thing.
No.
So what happens when you nick a sack? You begin to panic, and it says, "Give me some suction."
I need some
Fluid's
suction on my
everywhere.
sack.
Yeah, some boys like that.
Yep, the fluid's leaking everywhere. But instead, Christian, so much in this sentence here.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
But instead, Christian tells him to count to 5. Jack is confused, so Christian says, "I'm talking about you stitching up the sack so this girl isn't paralyzed for the rest of her life. And the only way you're going to do that is not be afraid. So close your eyes, count to 5, and then fix her, Jack, or I'll have to fix her for you.
Oh, my.
So the monitors are beeping while Jack closes his eyes and counts to 5. He gains his composure and begins suturing the sack. Jack is frustratingly shaking a vending machine a little later after his Apollo bar gets stuck. God, I hate when your bar gets stuck. Christian walks up and says, "Hey, kiddo, girl's in recovery. She's responsive to stimulus below the waist, so no paralysis."
Oh,
Christian
good.
senses that something is bothering Jack, so he asks him about it. Jack thinks that his father embarrassed him in front of his team. He says, "It's bad enough that everybody in this hospital thinks the only reason I got this residency is because you're my father. But then you put me in a timeout during my first major procedure in front of my entire team."
Oof.
Yeah, that was rough. "Dad, I know you don't believe in me, but I need them to." Christian replies, "Are you sure I'm the one who doesn't believe in you, Jack?"
Whoa.
As Christian walks away, the sound of coins rattling in a machine and a machine beeping can be heard. Jacob pulls 2 stacks from the machine and turns to Jack. He asks, "One of them yours?" Jacob hands Jack the Apollo bar. Their fingers briefly graze each other during the pass-off. Jack confirms that it's his Apollo bar and says, "The machine got stuck," and Jacob replies, "Guess it just needed a little push."
Oh.
It's metaphorical.
Yes.
It's metaphorical.
Well, and it's funny to me that in the moment when this was happening, he was so pissed off at his dad. And he's like, you put me in a timeout. But then when he's describing the scene later or earlier to Kate, whichever,
Right.
whatever, it seems like such a good moment for him that he's like, I realize that this is something that I need to do.
Mhm.
And so he kind of passed on the wisdom to close your eyes, count to 5, and then the fear is gone.
Yeah, it's interesting. It shows that there had definitely been a change in his mindset between the two scenes.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the finger brush.
Whoop. Maybe it was the little push. But I find that line pretty amazing, actually. Because, is that what he's doing? Is that what the touching is doing? Is it like quite literally and metaphorically a push?
So in 1977 on the island, Sawyer and Jack come to a clearing in the jungle. Sawyer sits and tells Jack he should take a load off. Jack refuses, so the sheriff of Island Town requests again, "Sit down, Jack." This time Jack complies and Sawyer continues, "My folks died when I was 8 years old. I ever tell you that? Con man took my dad for everything he had. He didn't deal with it very well. He shot my mom and then blew his own head off. I was hiding under the bed when it happened. I heard the whole thing." Jack is horrified and says he's sorry. Sawyer replies, "Yeah, that was a year ago. Right now it's July 1977, which means it happened last year.
Wow.
So I could have hopped on the sub, gone back to the States, walked right in my house, and stopped my daddy from killing anybody." So Jack wonders why Sawyer didn't take the opportunity, and Sawyer says, "Because, Jack, what's done is done."
Wow.
Yeah, because I probably would have hopped in that sub and stopped them.
You think?
Yeah. Jack argues it doesn't have to be that way. Sawyer wonders what Jack screwed up so badly that he's willing to detonate a nuke to try to change it. Jack denies his motivation and explains, 3 years ago, Locke told me that this was all happening for a reason, that us being here was our destiny. Sawyer's not having any of it and says, "I don't speak destiny. What I do understand is a man does what he does because he wants something for himself. What do you want, Jack?" And then Jack replies, I had her and I lost her."
Whoa.
Oh.
Whoa. Remember a couple episodes ago, Ben, you were talking about you thought Jack was over it, and I said, "We'll see."
Just not.
He
Guess
wants to
not.
nuke an island to get her back. Shit.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking selfish move. Like, I'm gonna kill everyone. I'm gonna erase 3 years of everyone's lives because I can't get over her. Wow, Jack,
Yeah.
really?
Yep.
Yeah. But again, when Sawyer asks Jack, "What do you want, Jack?" Like the look on his face and the tone of voice was so earnest. He,
Absolutely.
he wasn't being a shit. He was just like, "Really, what's your deal?"
Yep.
Yeah. Sawyer has clearly changed, but Jack.
Oh yeah, he's way matured.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jack seems not so much.
I wouldn't agree with that. I mean, Jack has changed. He's gone from, a man of science to, this is my destiny.
Yeah, because he doubted Lockett the whole time in the beginning.
You're absolutely right. I should have been more specific. His selfish behavior has not changed.
Okay, yeah.
But you're right. Yeah, there definitely has been a transformation.
So Sawyer is annoyed and points out that Kate is on the other side of the trees and Jack can ask her to get back together. Jack states that it's too late for that and Sawyer's 5 minutes are up. Sawyer reminds Jack that if this does what he wants it to do, Jack won't know Kate and she'll be back in handcuffs. Jack thinks if it's meant to be, it'll happen anyway. Sawyer assumes there's nothing he can do to change Jack's mind. Jack confirms this is correct. So Sawyer sucker punches Jack and yells, "Who the hell do you think you are? You think you can come here and do You think you can come here and do whatever the hell you want? I had a life here, and now the men are pummeling each other."
It's quite a fight.
Beating the living shit out of each other. So Sawyer tackles Jack right into a tree. Jack punches back, and Sawyer goes down. Jack starts to plead with him. "Sawyer, listen, you don't get it." Sawyer doesn't care to hear more and kicks Jack in the nuts before hitting him in the face. Well, hits him in the sack, actually.
Yes.
He kicks him right in the Dural.
Yep. He says, "Let me count to 5. Oh, God, this hurts." And then it hits him in the face with a piece of wood. Yes, whips it out. "Here you go, Jack." Pow! Jack goes down and Sawyer starts to strangle him. Jack is groaning and Sawyer is shouting, "Will you stop? Will you stop?" And Jack squeaks out a no. Sawyer starts beating the fuck out of him. Jack is moaning, but not in a good way.
No.
And Juliet runs up to tell James to stop. Sawyer tries to justify the beating because Jack won't listen and won't stop. Juliet says, "That's because he's right." Huh?
Flip-flop number 2.
Yep, he's right, James. We have to do this. Whoa, what? Sawyer is furious and says, "What are you talking about? You're the one that told me to come back here and stop him. What happened?" Juliet gives a Juliet look, the one with the slight head tilt, and she says, "I changed my mind."
Sawyer doesn't love her as much as he loves Kate, therefore she's willing to blow up the island too. So basically everyone's willing to blow up the island because of fucking Kate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fucking Kate.
Oh, my God.
And with that, we have the lost title screen. So we go to flashback number 2, 1981, off the island. A young blonde girl in a pink shirt sits on the couch with a sour look. Her older sister with dark hair sits behind her, also upset. The mother speaks, "Girls, your dad and I have something we need to talk to you both about." And the younger sister wonders if they're moving again. And the older sister says, "No, stupid. They're getting a divorce." The mother scolds her and calls her Rachel, and Rachel ignores her mother and claims again it's true. And Mom says, "Yes, but we need you to both understand that your father and I, we still love each other. Just because two people love each other doesn't mean you're always supposed to be together." Yeah, I think that's a corny thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, though. That's
true.
You're
I
the
guess.
only person here that's not a child of
I
divorce.
know. That's probably why I said it that way.
Yeah.
So the little sister thinks maybe their parents are supposed to be together, but the mom shuts that thought down quickly. The girl starts crying, and her mom reassures her that she'll understand when she's older. She screams, "I don't want to understand her. I don't want to understand." Her mother says, "Juliet, wait." But instead, Juliet runs from the room still screaming, "I don't want to understand."
Aw. It's
So
traumatic.
in 1977, Juliet is marching through the jungle while Sawyer tries to stop her so they can talk. She doesn't think there's anything to talk about, but Sawyer thinks maybe she could have told him before he kicked Jack's ass.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, but then she has another point. She stops and turns to say, "Would that have stopped you?" Sawyer admits, "No." So Juliet turns around and keeps marching. She comments about how she's glad Sawyer finally got that Jack beating out of his system. So yeah, he's wanted to beat his ass for a while.
Yeah.
Sawyer runs ahead to try to touch Juliet, but she resists. He says, "I need you to tell me where this is all coming from. I mean, 1 minute you're leading the great sub-escape, and now you're on board with blowing up the damn island. I got a right to know what changed your mind."
True.
Juliet responds, "I changed my mind when I saw you look at her." Sawyer tries to reassure Juliet that he's with her, but Juliet says, "And you would stay with me forever if I let you, and that is why I will always love you." And we
This is
had
the first time I'm crying in this episode.
Oh, yeah. This episode, I was crying through the whole goddamn thing.
what we had. It was just for a little while. And just because we love each other, it doesn't mean that we're meant to be together. I mean, maybe we were never supposed to be together. So if Jack can make it that none of you ever come here, then he should. A clearly distraught Sawyer begs her, "Why are you doing this, Juliet?" She's holding back tears, and her voice breaks when Juliet responds, "If I had never met you, then I'd never have to lose you."
Oh, shit.
So, at the Swan work site, Radzinski looks at a map while the drill can be heard loudly in the background. Dr. Chang yells to Radzinski that the Gauss meter readings jumped off the chart. Radzinski is thrilled by this, announcing, "We're on top of the pocket." Dr. Chang warns, if we keep drilling and hit that pocket, all hell's going to break loose. Just then, Phil, good old Phil, radios Radzinski. He tells him that the guy who shot Ben came back to the barracks. Then he was rescued by some of the other new recruits in a stolen Dharma van. He doesn't know where they went, but Roger told him they had a bomb. Radzinski says, "That hostile knows about the Swan. Get some men and some guns and get your asses out here right now. Don't bother training for the gunfight because it's going to suck.
That's right.
Just start shooting wildly. If they're coming here, we're going to be ready for them."
It's like, hey, these guns haven't even been sighted in yet. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, we don't need that. Who needs sights?
Also, Roger told him that he had a bomb, which means he heard Saeed and still shot him.
Yeah, he said a nuke. Oh, yeah, let me just shoot a guy with a nuke on his back.
Yeah, I think we both know that wouldn't really do anything. So
No.
All right.
So Jack is watching the scene from up on a ridge. Kate approaches, sees his wounds, and asks what happened. He replies, "Yeah, my talk with Sawyer didn't go so good." She wipes blood off his face and asks if he remembers the suturing scene from the pilot episode. Jack chuckles and says it feels like 1,000,000 years ago. And Kate replies, or 30 years from now. Jack laughs a little again and says, "Kate, why did you make me promise never to talk about A-Aron?" Kate tells him she was so angry at him for making a return here that she didn't want to talk to him. Jack wants to know if A-Aron was the reason she's here. She says, "I came back so he could be where he belongs. So he could be where he belongs with his mother." Jack is happy to report that if the bomb works, Claire and Aaron will be the I can't even say his name right now. I can saying A-Aron.
Oh my God. That's
So I'm going to call him
hilarious.
A-Aron. Fuck it. Kate blurts out, she was going to give him up for adoption, Jack. Jack claims Kate can't know that, know what Claire will do, and this is the only way to save her. Below, loud creaking and crashing are heard. Phil and Radzinski are screaming. An alarm is blaring. Radzinski screams, "Keep going." Jack looks at Kate and says, "It's about to happen. Are you with me on this?" Kate confirms yes, and Jack says, "Let's go."
I thought Evangeline Lilly was brilliant in this scene. I really
Yeah, she was good. in this.
Yeah. I felt what she was going through.
Yeah, everyone's wanting to blow up an island because of her.
Wow.
So flashback number 3, 2007, off the island, Hurley is standing at a desk being released from prison. The jail clerk lists the things confiscated when Hurley was arrested: 1 wallet, $227 in cash, 1 ballpoint pen, 1 fruit roll-up. Sign here. He tries to convince the prison clerk that he shouldn't be released because he killed a bunch of people. I guess this clerk has heard this before, so...
Maybe. He was not phased at all.
Nope, the uninterested clerk states that the discharge form says he's been cleared, so Hurley needs to take his stuff and go. Hurley protests, saying there's men with tranquilizer guns hunting him.
Oh, God.
The clerk says, "No, there's a cab out front." So outside, Hurley hops in the cab and finds him sitting next to Jacob,
Of course.
who has a guitar case beside him.
Oh.
Hurley apologizes and starts to get out, but Jacob says he's only going a few blocks and offers to share. Hurley thanks him and offers up some of his fruit roll-up. Hurley asks Jacob why he's in jail before saying, "I was there because I killed 3 people, but I didn't really. I guess they figured it out. What about you?" I'd be like, "Hey, can you pull over here? I need to get out." Jacob says he wasn't in jail and adds, "I was waiting for you, Hugo."
Oh.
Whoa. Hurley replies matter-of-factly, "Oh, then you must be dead." Jacob says Jacob says he is there to find out why Hurley won't return to the island, and Hurley says he can't because he's cursed. It was his fault that Oceanic Flight 815 crashed in the first place. Now his dead friends Libby and Charlie visit him, and he can't make it stop. Jacob says, well, what if you weren't cursed? What if you were blessed? You get to talk to people you've lost. Seems like a pretty wonderful thing to me.
Huh.
Hurley
Always
replies,
look on the bright side of life. That's
Oh my
Jacob right
God.
now.
Yes. Hurley replies, oh, I'm sure it's wonderful, except the part where I'm crazy. Jacob tells Hurley that he's not crazy and then signals for the cab to stop up ahead. Hurley asks, who are you, dude? Jacob replies, Ajira Airways Flight 316 out of LAX. Leaves in 24 hours. All you have to do is be on that plane.
Whoa.
And Jacob touches Hurley's arm and continues, it's your choice, Hugo. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. As Jacob exits the car, Hurley hollers that he forgot his guitar, and Jacob says, it's not my guitar.
Alrighty. What do you think of that scene?
I
Derek.
think that
Ben?
Jacob, Hurley did not consent to Jacob touching his arm, so
That's right.
there's that.
It's assault.
Oh my God.
Now we know where Hurley got the guitar.
There we go.
Yeah. So my immediate thing is like, what's in the guitar case?
What's in the guitar?
You-
What's in the guitar case?
You'd think it's a guitar, right? But fuck, at this point, who knows?
Whatever
Charlie's.
the case may be.
Oh.
Ah, yeah, it's like
Maybe
Charlie's
it's-
bones or something.
Maybe it's
Oh, God.
A-Aron.
Genitals.
God,
It's A-Aron, the
That's
guitar case simulating the womb.
wow,
A lot of symbolism in that case.
it's just filled with fruit roll-ups.
Yeah.
You can hear like muffled screams. I want a juice box.
Little shit. So 1977, back on the island, the Dharma van is parked in the jungle. Saeed sits outside of it, bleeding heavily. Hurley comes over with a canteen of water and says, don't worry, dude. Everything will be fine when Jack changes the future. Or the past. One of those. Jack returns from his meeting with Sawyer. Hurley says, dude, what happened to your face? Jack ignores him and says he could go see the swan site from a ridge. They hit something. It's time for me to go. Side replies, it's all set to go. Remember, be careful. It's rigged to explode on impact.
Mhm.
According to Faraday's plan, you must get the bomb as close as you can to the source of the electromagnetism. Jack reassures Saeed that this is going to work and he will save him. Saeed replies, nothing can save me.
Whoa.
Oh, you're dark.
Yeah, Saeed's having like an existential
Yeah.
moment right
Yeah.
now.
Well, you're bleeding profusely from your gut. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a horrible way to die because it's got you a lot of time to think about dying.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
Ben, what were you
being
saying?
gut shot. That would suck.
That's a
Yeah, that's terrible.
Jack puts the backpack with the Jughead core on his back. He takes a gun from Hurley and nods to Kate before leaving. Kate nearly says something to him, but decides not to. Thank you for not fucking it up even more, Kate. On his way through the jungle, he encounters Sawyer and Juliet walking towards him. He looks at Sawyer as he passes and says, see you in Los Angeles.
Wow.
So 2007 on the island, Richard is leading the group on their way to Jacob when he stops. Locke wants to know why, and Richard says, you'll see. The camera pans back to reveal the remains of the Tauret statue.
Mm-hmm.
The single four-toed foot can be seen just down the coast. Locke says, well, that's a wonderful foot, Richard, but what does it have to do with Jacob?
Ha!
Alpert replies, it's where he lives. Come on, Locke.
Well, do you see the look on Locke Not Locke's face? Yeah, no, still, if you're watching for the first time, you don't know for certain that this is the Man in Black, but the Man in Black seems surprised that that's where Jacob lives, doesn't he? Almost
Yep.
is like, how
Oh,
did
yeah.
I not find him there? It's sort of what it feels like.
Flashback number 4. We're in 2000 off the island. Jacob sits on a bench reading Everything That Rises Must Converge by Flannery O'Connor.
And I have some bad news for you guys.
It's not in the fun facts?
No, it's definitely the fun facts.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to Gilgamesh you, but there's some important themes in that book that
Okay.
we need to discuss.
Behind him, shattering glass can be heard, and then a man falls to the ground with a thud. A crowd rushes to the man, and a woman screams, "Oh my God, call 911." The man on the ground, of course, is John Locke after being pushed out of an 8-story window by his father.
Did anybody
Jacob-
notice that the crowd, everyone standing around him, it was like it was the pandemic. They were like 6 feet away
Yes,
from his body.
Yeah, they were like close looking over, like, "Are you all right? Are
Yeah,
you
like
dead?"
nobody
Yeah.
runs up to like see if he could possibly be alive. They all just stand 6 feet away going, "Call 911." Like, what the fuck? And also, why is there no blood pool? Come on. The guy had
Yeah.
to be bleeding from his head, right? Come on.
No, I've actually heard that sometimes when people fall from like really high up, that there's not a lot of blood.
Well, that was
The body
not our friend.
basically the skin and the body stays intact, and it's the blunt
that-
force trauma that kills you.
I don't know. That was not our friend's experience.
No. I mean, if you come down, like I think it's like if you sort of pancake, that might happen. But if you come down on like limbs or something like that, shit's gonna break open and it's gonna be
Yeah.
bloody. Yeah.
I see. Well, because a friend of ours, someone in her building in Seattle, jumped off their balcony right as she was walking her dog around the corner, and she walked into his blood, got it on her feet and her dog's feet. So he bled. Yeah, she left the state. She moved to Florida after that. She couldn't be in the city because she was so traumatized by the
This
event.
guy taking a flyer.
Yeah. Anyways, so I don't know. That was an impact, and he definitely had a blood pool. But
Yeah.
anywho, Jacob.
Calmly closes his book and approaches the seemingly dead John Locke. Jacob touches his shoulder, and Locke gasps back to life and opens his eyes. So Locke was dead.
I don't know. Was he?
Yeah.
I don't. It's not clear, but they certainly imply it. Maybe.
I mean,
or-
technically, you can survive an 8-story, but
Right.
it's not very common.
Yeah.
Jacob says, "Don't worry, everything's going to be all right. I'm sorry this happened to you." Locke stares in shock and terror as Jacob walks away.
Also, the interesting thing about this is we see Jacob treating the rest of the Losties like Locke here and touching him and that kind of thing. So he obviously deems Locke to be in whatever category he has for the rest of them. But remember, Richard it has not been impressed with Locke over his life. So I find that
There's
kind of
nothing
interesting.
special.
Yeah, I find that kind of interesting.
So on the beach outside the statue, Locke looks towards the foot. Richard approaches, lights a torch, and then sticks it in the sand. Richard tells Locke that Jacob would eventually come to him if he waited, and Locke says, "I'm tired of waiting. Where is he, Richard?" Albert picks up the torch and leads Locke away. Son looks to Ben and asks where the rest of the statue went, and Ben says it was like that when he got here. Son asks, "Do you expect me to believe that?" And Ben replies, "Not really." Locke approaches to tell Ben it's time to go. When Ben gets up to follow, Richard is shocked and tells Locke he cannot bring Ben. He says, "Only our leader can request an audience with Jacob, and there can be only one leader on the island at a time, John." Locke replies, "I'm beginning to think you just make up these rules as you go along, Richard. Ben is coming with me, and if that's a problem, I'm sure Jacob and I could work it out." Man.
Well,
Richard continues to the base of the statue. He hands Locke his torch and pushes against an indented section of the wall. After much effort, a piece of the wall moves back slightly. Albert says, "Tell him I said hello."
why do you think Albert's going along with this? Why do you think he's allowing Locke to go see him and
Because he doesn't know what's going on.
I guess so, but I'm thinking about when they
Well, he
were
told Ben he was like, "This Locke's beginning to be a problem," and Ben's like, "Why do you
Right.
think I tried to kill him?"
right, and and that's why I'm wondering why he's continuing to go along with it at this point. And I'm also thinking about when they were in the tunnels, and he knocks Ellie out because he's protecting the leader. I'm just wondering why he's not so as protective of Jacob in this situation.
I kind of got the impression that Jacob sort of felt this coming, knew it was coming, and is just sort of allowing the chips fall.
And Albert's just going along with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Albert is like his advisor, I guess. You know, we still don't have his whole story.
For a very, very long time.
Yes. Yeah. I can't wait until...
Does he have another episode, Richard?
Yes, he does. That's why Christy got that one this season. Otherwise, it would have been like 5 in a row from Derek because it was the whole end of the season was badass. But you have the Richard episode next season, and different from in season 5, they tease us. They only show us like in the 2 timelines that we're already watching. But the episode that you have does give us Richard's actual backstory.
So Richard leaves and Locke pushes a stone back the rest of the way. The men enter and Ben pauses for a moment. Locke says, "Will you be able to do this, Ben? I know it won't be easy, but things will change once he's gone. I promise." Locke pulls the knife from its sheath. Ben takes the weapon and the men make their way inside.
Holy fuck.
Wow, it's going to happen. 1977 on the island. Jen is tending Saeed's bandages. Miles asks Sawyer, "Has it occurred to any of you that your buddy's actually going to cause the thing that he says he's trying to prevent? Perhaps that little nuke is the incident. So maybe the best thing to do is nothing." And yeah, everyone does stare in shock. It's like, really? You didn't consider this?
There's also a sad moment here. I guess I forgot to put it in the outline, but when Miles first starts speaking to Sawyer, he calls him LaFleur. And Sawyer says,
like,
there is no more LaFleur.
Yeah.
It's sad.
3 years is over.
Yep.
So Miles says, "I'm glad you all thought this through."
Ha! Oh my God.
The group spots a vehicle driving the terrain. Jen says, "It's Phil. That's the road to the Swan." Kate is afraid that if they catch Jack, they'll kill him. Sawyer looks at Juliet and says, "What do you think, Blondie?" Juliet replies, "Live together, die alone."
Oh my.
There's illusions there, yeah.
Oh my.
She wasn't even around when Jack was saying that.
Well, I think it's been said continuously. It pops up every now and then, so maybe.
Yeah.
Also, the two of them lived together for 3 years. I'm sure she's heard all of the adventures from their side by now, right?
Yeah.
He tells that story like every night at dinner. She's like, "Okay, Jack, I've heard this story before."
No, Sawyer would be telling her.
Or Sawyer. Yeah.
So Phil and his team arrive at the Swan worksite. An alarm is blaring and the men are shouting. Radzinski tells Phil there's been no sign of anyone yet, and they still have time to set up a perimeter. Dr. Chang is furious that Radzinski called them in here. He says, "We wanted to be getting people away from here." Jack is watching the scene from the water tank on the ridge. Phil is barking orders at people when he notices Jack and grabs a gun. And here comes one of the best gun battles in Hollywood history.
Oh my God.
It's
so jump the shark here. Good Lord.
It does not jump the shark. And
it kind of jumps the shark.
Ben, listen, I want a divorce. The show
People
does
can
not
still
jump
love
the
each
shark.
other and not be together.
Yeah.
I could actually see the court documents. They're like, "What was it?" He said he jumped a shark on Lost episode whatever. I just can't be with a man who thinks that.
Exactly. I wrote down in the outline, like, this scene is sort of like a video game. He's just trying to deliver that payload and not get hit. It reminded me a lot of Frogger, like jumping across the street and trying not to get hit by something. The whole scene looked like a really old video game to me.
Yeah, it was. I mean, all of this looked like it was shot in the 1980s. The action sequence is so
like an
cheesy,
or MacGyver or something.
Yeah, exactly right. It is so fucking cheesy. A-Team, sort of MacGyver sort of thing. Yeah,
same. That's what I was thinking. Was like those really early video games. Anyways,
this was filmed in what, like 2009, 8?
Yeah,
2008, something like that.
It's funny that y'all bring up the A-Team because there's an A-Team moment a little bit later on in the episode.
Okay, well, we'll get there.
Mr. G
I guess.
pops out?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no, I think I know what you're talking about.
Fool, I'll break those chains. So bullets start firing and Jack takes cover. He shoots one of the guards and Phil yells, "Flank him, get him now." Because now all of a sudden he's like a general or something.
Yeah, because you can always hear people when there's gunfire.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
A Dharma van comes speeding over with Kate and Juliet shooting from it. The van halts.
The
They're on
AC
the
moment.
AC.
The
Yep.
antsy moment, exactly right. I was like, I knew it. It's when that fucking van shows up.
Yeah.
Ping, 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 all shooting out of the doors. It's funny. Kate doesn't even bother getting out. She's sitting there like perfectly on display for anyone to just go pop, one shot, dead. She just sits there, ding, 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 ding. Oh my god, it's so bad.
It's so good.
It's so bad.
It sounds like it might have made the worst of the worst list or something.
Yes,
boy.
it did definitely make mine for sure.
Uh-huh.
So the van halts and Juliet hops out while Kate remains inside. Sawyer and Miles follow shortly after. Gunfire continues and several more security members are hit. Jack makes his way closer to the site, jumping down ridges. Gunshots ricochet as the firing continues because they can't hit a broadside of a barn.
Fuck
Man,
no, these guys are terrible.
they're worse than stormtroopers. Shit.
They are.
Sawyer sneaks through the site and jumps for Zinski, hitting him with his gun and then grabbing Phil by the neck from behind. Dr. Chang manages to disarm Zinski, and then, with a gun pointed at Phil's head, Sawyer says, "Drop it, Phil, or you're a dead man."
Oh.
Phil drops his gun and tells the rest of his men to do the same. So that was mercifully over. The alarm is still blaring and the drill is still drilling. Sawyer calls to Jack to say it's safe to come out. Kate and Juliet make their way over as well. Sawyer tells Dr. Chang to turn the drill off. Chang pulls all the levers, but the drill continues. He tries pushing some buttons, but the drill continues. He yells, "It won't shut down. Something's pulling the drill down."
Uh-oh.
An excited Rudzinski screams, "We hit the pocket." Yeah, the pocket. Jack pulls Jughead's core from the backpack and holds it over the hole
Nah.
that's being drilled.
Nah.
Sawyer says, "Hurry up, Doc. What are you waiting for? Drop it." And he does pause for a while here.
Yeah.
While the drilling continues, Jack looks up at Kate. She looks back and nods. Sawyer doesn't give a fuck about Phil anymore and releases him before turning to Juliet.
He just throws him on the ground.
Well, they're about to get nuked. I mean, who gives a
Just
fuck?
chucked him down the fucking hole. That would have been funny.
Yep.
Well, I think his actual death is more hilarious than that.
Let's say, hey, we need to fill in this hole.
Ah! It's been a while. She smiles at him and Sawyer closes his eyes. Jack drops Jughead's core and it plummets down the shaft. Everyone closes their eyes.
Like they're bracing for it.
Right.
Yeah.
For a
Yep.
nuclear detonation.
Right.
Which, if it did fall down far enough, a fission detonation might not even kill you at that point. Like, it would definitely come back up that hole, but that might just superheat in air, and it might not actually kill you.
Yeah,
because most of the blast would be taken up by the Earth itself.
Yeah, they banned, above ground tests. And for a while we did underground tests only. So yeah, there was no radiation coming out, no destruction.
Yep.
Well, we do know that the island was still there after this incident, right?
Yep.
That's true.
So, I don't know.
So after a few moments of flinching, they all reopen their eyes and realize that Saeed didn't arm it right. Sawyer sighs and says, "This don't look like LAX."
No. Oh, dear.
Suddenly, a humming sound begins, and metal clanks and bangs loudly as the drill shakes, and a column of steam shoots from the shaft.
Boom goes the dynamite.
Yep. Jack's gun is yanked into the shaft, and a toolbox follows it. Chang is frantically trying to shut down the drill again, but nothing happens. Yeah, I think it's a little too late for that there, Chang.
Yeah, right.
The drill tower bends and creaks as it starts to topple over. Dr. Chang shrieks as his hand gets trapped under the machine, and Miles screams, "Dad," and then bam, a toolbox slams Jack in the back of the head.
Love it.
Boink.
And that would probably kill you. The fucking toolbox is heavy as fuck.
There's some sort of Jack in the Box joke there, but I can't quite find it.
Kate shouts, Jack. Miles yells, Dad. Metal is flying everywhere. Miles manages to get his father free and tells him to get as far away as possible. Brzezinski and the other douches are in a Jeep, and Dr. Chang hops inside.
Douches are often in Jeeps, so this is pretty on the point.
Yep.
My first husband had a Jeep.
They try to drive away, but the electromagnetism pulls the Jeep backward. The Jeep rolls over, and the passengers are thrown out. Phil sees a gun, picks it up, and points it at Sawyer. He yells, Hey, LaFleur!
Luckily, that gun was not attracted by, like, it pulls a Jeep in, but the gun is somehow blessedly free of that.
Right,
it must have been
like
made from a ceramic composite or something, yeah.
Maybe they have some 3D printers on the island.
Right, exactly.
I do love that Miles is suddenly screaming, Dad!
That was cool.
I loved that.
Yeah.
Sawyer notices the scaffolding begin to fall and takes off just in time for it to land on Phil, who is impaled by a metal spike. Good riddance, fucking Phil.
Stick around.
Yeah.
It wasn't flaming, but it was very reminiscent of Frogert's demise.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The magnetism pulls a chain, wrapping it around Juliet conveniently and dragging her to the shaft opening. Juliet screams, help. Kate tries to pull her to safety, but isn't strong enough. Juliet is grabbing at bars as Sawyer runs to help. She loses grip on the bars just as Sawyer grabs her hand and says, Where do you think you're going, Blondie? Juliet is waiting for wailing that the chains are hurting her. Kate reaches for the chains and Sawyer screams, Hold on, hold on.
Oh my God.
I was really waiting for the chains to fucking rip her in half.
In half.
If it could pull a Jeep, it was going to, rip her in half.
Every time I see this, well, when I was watching the scene, because I watched this episode a couple times, I kept thinking of the song, You Can Break These Chains of Love. That would be an absolutely perfect for that to happen during this scene. Wouldn't have changed the mood at all.
No, not even slightly.
Because I was sobbing.
Oh, yeah.
So Juliet is sobbing and says, I can't get it off. Kate says she can't reach the chains. Sawyer screams, You hold on. Just as the machine finally buckles and the drill begins to snap in half, Sawyer wails, Don't you leave me. And all of a sudden, all this dust kicked up in my apartment. And a sobbing Julia says, It's okay. I love you. I love you, James. Sawyer realizes what's happening and begs her, Don't let go. Don't ever let go, Rose. Don't ever let go.
Also, the soundtrack here is now changed to Fleetwood Mac. You will never break the chain.
There you go.
Julia says, I love you so much, and then releases her grip on Sawyer. Her screams can be heard as she falls down the shaft. A sobbing Sawyer cries out, Juliet, no.
Oh, he's fantastic in this moment.
He really was like, he was sobbing,
Yeah.
Seeing so much emotion come from Sawyer was probably part of why I continued to cry too.
Yeah, absolutely. He was incredible in this scene.
Oh, yeah.
I think we just need to get our vents cleaned out because I also that somewhere around that time. I guess the heat or something must have come on because I started tearing up a little bit there.
Kicked up some dust.
Definitely kicked up some dust.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
So 2007 on the island, as they wait outside the statue foot, Richard offers Sun some water, and she asks if he has any alcohol. He laughs. I would be too after all that shit.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
He laughs and says, Sure wish I did. And Alana and her team arrive with the crate, and the others cock their guns, so we know they're all serious.
Very serious. Lot of serious noises.
And she asks for Richardus.
Uh-huh.
Almost sounds Roman there. So.
I think she calls him Ricardus.
Ricardus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ricardus.
Looking for Ricky Ricardus.
Yeah.
But definitely,
and Alfred says
definitely
it's
a more ancient version of the name Richard.
Yeah, I think Ricard. I
as
think
you
the
picked
H
up on.
shouldn't have been in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Ricardus. Alfred says it's Richard, actually. Alana asks him what lies in the shadow of the statue. And Richard replies in Latin, which I'm terrible at pronouncing. Maybe Ben could try it.
Ille qui nos omnes servabit. I don't know what that
There you go.
I don't know what that sounded all right.
That
Yeah.
actually sounded more Latin than I could have done. I've been like, Illiqui nos omnis, which means he who will protect us all.
Oh.
Alana closes her eyes and a relief comes over her body. She says, Richard, I'm Alana. I have something you need to see. As she shouts to her team to open the crate, the others somehow cock their guns again without having fired them. What they would have done is just ejected a good
round.
Ejected a good round out of there. But they are incredibly serious.
Yes.
Richard tells the others it's okay to let Alana open the crate, and an Indiana Jones pops out. Everyone's face melts, and the Nazis are killed. When they do, they tip the crate and dump the body on the ground. Albert says, where did you find him? Alana replies, in the cargo hold of the plane we came here on. In a coffin. What? The camera pans, and just like the end of season 4, the dead body is revealed to be John Locke. What?
Double lock in a box.
Son says, I don't understand. If this is Locke, who's in there?
Oh, that's the question.
Yep, I think
Who's in the foot?
Son was lucky. Son got to ask the question for all of us.
Right.
Yes.
There.
Yeah. Who's in the foot?
Who's in the foot?
Inside the statue's base, Locke, not Locke, and Ben enter the chamber where fire is burning. It appears to be empty. Ben looks up through the hole in the ceiling to see the night sky and a crescent moon. He moves towards the tapestry on the wall, which now stretches to the floor, because he had a lot of free time on his hands.
Absolutely. And we will dive deep into the symbols on that in season 6, episode 1's Fun Facts.
All right.
Okay, let me just put a pin in that. All right.
Yeah.
Jacob is revealed to be sitting behind a pillar in his chair, and it looked like the rocking chair, wasn't it?
It did look like the rocking chair from the cabin. You're right.
He says, you like it? I did it myself. It takes a very long time when you're making the thread, but I suppose that's the point, isn't it? Locke, not Locke, says, hello, Jacob. Jacob replies, well, you found your loophole. Oh, right there. Yep.
And it's confirmed.
Yep. At the mention of the loophole, it becomes apparent that Locke is actually the man in black from the opening scene of part 1. The man in black confirms he found the loophole and says, and you have no idea what I've gone through to be here.
Wow. You know, the interesting thing about this, like once it's confirmed, is that, it's the man in black, but he seems to have access to Locke's memories.
Yeah.
Right? Like
right.
He definitely is able to fake it and to say things that only Locke would know.
That's why I believed it was Locke, because, he had his memories.
Well,
right.
He does. I don't necessarily think it's just things that Locke would know, but it definitely indicates that he has a presence of being able to, like, witness things that have happened on the island. Like, he knew Ben was a liar, right? But he wouldn't know that specifically because of Locke. He just knows that because if he had been watching Ben for a long time, he'd see Ben lying.
Yeah, no, I mean what he's able to, like, access memories as in, like, remembering being strangled and things like that. Like, it seems that he has access to parts of Locke that only that brain would retain. Do you see what I mean?
Or maybe he's reading Ben's mind.
I mean, I guess that could be. I wanted to harken back on that to, if you remember this season's Fun Facts, when we talked about a separate reality, Further Conversations with Don Juan, and it was about that book that may have been completely made up. But you remember there was one part of the, like, Don Juan's messages, the sorcerer, things that he would say. And he believed, remember, that reality was created by infinite numbers of luminous eggs that existed beyond humans' reach. And the fibers of these eggs assemble reality. But the average person does not realize they're there. And he said the warrior, whatever the fuck that meant, but can enter the eggs of others so that they can transcend
Purple-headed warrior.
Ew. So that they can transcend bodily death by dissolving themselves into the luminous fibers of the egg. And I just thought, knowing that they had put that book in there, one of the writers at least, had read that, and it reminds me of sort of what maybe the Man in Black is doing here, is just kind of embodying, these luminous eggs of Locke or whatever. It's just, I felt like maybe that's where they kind of got the idea for this from. Somebody, whichever writer put that book in there.
Sounds kind of Scientology-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, like the Thetans? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Are you clear?
Maybe that's part of the cult of the hippos.
The cult of the hippos are Scientologists run by Ethan and Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
I thought the cult of the hippos just ate marbles.
Hungry hippo.
Okay, I guess we can keep going.
So Ben is confused and asks if the two men have met before. The Man in Black says, in a manner of speaking, do what I asked you to do, Ben. Jacob walks towards Ben and says, Benjamin, whatever he's told you, I want you to understand one thing. You have a choice. You can do what he asked, or you can go and leave us to discuss our issues.
Oh, boy.
Always gives a choice.
Yep, always does.
Ben, still not understanding this isn't truly Locke next to him, says, oh, so now after all this time, you decided to stop ignoring me. 35 years I've lived on this island, and all I've ever heard was your name over and over. Richard would bring me your instructions, all those slips of paper, all those lists, and I never questioned anything.
Oh, boy.
I did as I was told, but when I dared to ask to see you myself, I was told, you have to wait. You have to be patient. But when he asked to see you, he gets marched straight up here as if it was Moses. So why him? What was it that was so wrong with me? What about me?
Oh, no.
Jacob replies, what about you? Oof.
Oh.
I think that was the right response, Jacob. Ben takes this in momentarily and then whimpers, oh. He composes himself and in a normal voice says, well, right before stabbing Jacob twice in the chest.
Damn,
Jacob
in the heart, too.
Yep, he got him good. Jacob falls into Ben's arms and then onto the floor, blood dripping from his mouth. More like rushing. A gagging Jacob tries to say something. The Man in Black says, I can't hear you. Jacob says, they're coming. Who is they? The Man in Black stares at Jacob momentarily and then kicks him into the fire pit.
Holy fuck.
Hi, Jacob. Bye, Jacob. You lasted 2 episodes.
Now you're going the way of Frogurt.
Yep.
Well, I don't know about
So,
that.
1977 on the island. At the Swan site, buzzing and humming continue, and metal continues creaking. Jack wakes up and hears the muffled voices of Kate and Sawyer. Sawyer is lying on the drill structure, which is about to fall into the shaft. He is sobbing for Juliet, and Kate is trying to get him to move. She says, get off. It's going down. You have to let it go. He doesn't want to, though.
Nope.
You have to go. This thing is going to blow any second. Sawyer refuses to get up, so Kate calls Jack to help her. They pull Sawyer away from the drill as it crashes and falls into the hole. Now, in a truly believable scene.
Oh my God. Also in this scene, before I ruin the impact of it, I do notice Ben apparently has ruined me because I noticed so many blood continuity errors in this. Like it was in her mouth and then it wasn't, and then it was in her mouth and then it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is driving Ben nuts.
There's iron in the blood. It may be moving all over her face because of the electromagnetism. I don't know.
She's in the pocket.
Okay, all right.
Because how deep is this hole anyway? It looks like several hundred feet at least.
Yeah, it definitely drops pretty far down. I don't know.
So knowing all that, well, maybe the mud was really soft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Juliet wakes up at the bottom of the shaft, coughing up blood and crying. Through the sobs, she notices the jughead core conveniently lying next to her. She picks up a rock and begins to strike the bomb. While groaning in pain and sobbing, she's screaming, come on, come on, come on, you son of a bitch. And on the 8th strike, there's an enormous explosion, and a bright white light envelops everything. And this time you get the lost title screen all in white.
Yeah.
End of episode, end of season 5. So they did it.
That's
They
intense.
set it off.
That's intense. I can remember the first time watching this, just left like speechless at the end of this episode.
I'm glad I only have to wait a couple of weeks to watch it instead of like whatever it was back then.
I
6
know,
months.
yeah. Wait, yeah, exactly. You're right. You get to go right into it. Anyways, shall we do some fun facts on Everything That
Sure.
Rises Must Converge by Flannery O'Connor?
Flannery.
All right. Not going to Gilgamesh you, but while Jacob is waiting for Locke to fall out the window, he is casually reading Everything That Rises Must Converge, which is a collection of 9 short stories written by Flannery O'Connor in 1961. But the reason I mention it is not to Gilgamesh you with all 9 stories, but to talk about the collection's themes relevant to Lost. First, a tidbit of background on O'Connor and her characters. She was a devout Catholic. You guys are going to love this. And the villains in her books were often atheists, agnostics, or secular humanists who believe they are more intelligent than others. They tend to be... They tend to be, the atheists, cold-hearted. They live only in their heads, have difficulty forming meaningful relationships, and remain dependent upon a parent that they treat scornfully or disdainfully. She disparagingly refers to them as the intellectuals. She sounds lovely.
Wow.
So, for readers who do not hold her theology, such as us, O'Connor's stories still vividly and honestly depict the dark side of human character. She always has highly flawed characters, regardless of whether or not they are religious, and the highly flawed protagonists, I should say. And readers often see their own hypocrisy or egotism in those characters. I mean, say the critics. So, from a psychological perspective, O'Connor brilliantly portrays the sort of like inherent narcissism found in all human beings. So let's explore the 3 themes of the short story collection. Let me know if you hear anything familiar. The first is reality versus perception. The collection of stories shows the conflict between the perceptions different characters view as objective, proving later that those same perceptions were only subjective. Next, the complexity of morality. Morality is a central theme in Everything That Rises Must Converge. However, right and wrong are not necessarily clearly marked. O'Connor, well known for her morally ambiguous characters, frequently explores the complexity of morality and how people are simultaneously good and evil. And finally, the most prominent theme appearing in all 7 of the stories in the collection is sinfulness and redemption. In O'Connor's world, ultimately Christ is the Redeemer who opens the gate of heavens to Christians. But in O'Connor's stories, the Holy Ghost can descend as a purifying spiritual fire to burn away egotism, greed, pride, envy, and other sins, so that Christians can open themselves to receiving divining grace. In all of O'Connor's stories, people are punished for their sins, but may or may not be equipped to receive the fierce grace handed down by the sometimes brutal Holy Spirit. I don't know. That sort of had smoke
Does
monster.
characters work on themselves in any way, or is it all just like external?
Well, I don't
Have
know.
you ever go to therapy
Well, I didn't read the short stories and recite them to you because I've learned my lesson. All I know is I read what critics had to say about the book, and I thought that the themes sounded familiar in the same way like Don Juan the Sorcerer. It feels like there's some nuggets of things that were turned into the ideas of Lost and her idea of the religious undertones, the good and evil, the simultaneously good and evil, and all of that kind of stuff just rings. It's like the same sort of themes that we are exploring in this show.
See, I wonder now, because you had read like one of the first things is she calls like the, generally the antagonists or the intellectuals or whatever. But I got to wonder if that she's using that as a vehicle of using that sort of intolerance or whatever as one of the central pieces of the hypocrisy that she's calling out. So if she's basically doing that in jest and making her characters think that way, but showing their own hypocrisy by making them think that way. Be interesting. I'm interested.
Well,
in
I mean, that's why
movie.
literature is great, because people, it's like art, any sort of art, which writing obviously is. It's always can be interpreted in different ways, and that's
eye of the beholder.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's why art's great. Shall we do some best and worst?
Okay.
All right. You answered me. You go first, Ben.
I would say best and worst, just because it's a really poignant moment, but it's also like really well written and also very like hard on the heart, is when Juliet says, "If I never met you, I'll never have to lose you."
Yeah.
Ouch. The other worst would just be the entire gunfight sequence.
Okay.
And the best moments, I had trouble finding best moments. There was a lot of like important moments, but I think my favorite moment was when Miles just said, "Have you ever thought that maybe, blowing up the bomb is the reason why this all happens?" And then he says, I'm glad to see that you all have thought this through."
Yeah. So good.
I really like
Hilarious.
Miles so much more than I did when he was first introduced.
When he first introduced, I thought he was an asshole, but no, he's really cool.
And I also liked it when Miles was like, "Dad," and he just immediately goes to help him out.
I thought so too. What about you, Derek?
My best moments were the ending in both timelines. The bomb going off. Not sure what it's going to do, but also, what happened to Jacob.
Uh-huh.
And knowing this island, he's probably not gone, even though I threw him into some fire. And the worst
knowing
moment
this
was,
island.
Yeah. And the worst moment was, the whole Juliet thing, if this happens, then I never have to leave you. And then, of course, him not being able to save her.
Yeah. I think for me, the best moments were the taxi cab scene with Hurley and Jacob. I thought that was great. I love that Hurley thought he was dead. I love that Hurley is the only character so far that Jacob, out of the originals, when we see them meet, that Jacob actually like mentions the island and doesn't just pretend to be a stranger. And so I thought that was kind of fascinating.
Well, didn't he meet all the other ones before they went? Yeah, they were kids or young.
Of course, no, because he was Saeed, and Saeed, that was after.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but so, you're right. I mean, obviously, the thing with the children.
No. Saeed was not after he had been on the island.
Yeah, he was home. That's when he married Nadia.
Nadia was killed
when he came back as the Oceanic Six.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there was that. So anyways, I thought it seemed like an important scene because I thought that the way that he was communicating with Hurley was different than, the way he was communicating with the other people that he touched. And then
I also a choice too.
Yeah. And he gives everybody a choice, right? Yeah. So, and then just the end of everything, kind of like you said, Derek, it's all in the best and the worst. Like the last moment was like both gut wrenching, and also mind blowing. At the same time, it's wrapped up in the worst moments, which is the demise of Juliet and, the way that they were separated and Sawyer's pain and all of that is going on. But then at the same time, that last moment is like, holy shit, this is awesome. And so it's all wrapped up in a big conflicted like lump for me as far as best and worst. Christy, how about you?
I also had a hard time finding some best moments, so I just pulled a couple of silly moments that I enjoyed. Kate, Juliet, and Sawyer coming in like the damn A-team.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. And Phil being impaled by rebar was pretty
Yes.
great.
You're right. That's perfect.
For worst moments, I think the Man in Black killing Jacob's kind of an obvious one. I absolutely agree with Ben with the whole, if I never met you, then I never have to lose you. And then the whole scene with Juliet being pulled into the hole by the chains. And I think that this is one of those situations where, you know, she was like, oh, you love Kate more than me. You know, yeah, you love me, but Kate's the one that you really want. I think that this is one of those situations where you see that he really did love Juliet.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't think
and it's
that he
sad
would
that
have
she
chosen
doubted
Kate.
that.
Exactly. I don't think, based on how he reacts to losing her, I don't think that he ever would have chosen Kate if given that choice.
Yeah, I don't think he would have either. And I even, you know, I wonder about the way that he looked at her. You know, this is why sometimes it's dangerous to interpret body language without speaking to someone about it, because he may have glanced at Kate in that moment, like thinking, gosh, I'm so glad, you know, that I had this time with Juliet, or, you know, looking at Kate as like, it's something that was my past, or like, you never really can know. And I would say that his actions, other than a glance, appear that Juliet was the one for him. Yeah. And I think you're right about that. Yeah, for sure.
Which really indicates that what it was from Juliet's perspective, it was really kind of an overreaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes down to it, like whether he could have been looking at a fucking T-bone steak and just been hungry. You don't know when somebody's looking at something. You can look at something and be afraid of something, and then you'll see it, and you're gonna bias yourself into thinking whatever you saw is just backing up.
I think it's reasonable for her to make that assumption.
Sure.
But I think she also excluded any other possibility out of insecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. All right. That was sort of a downer. Shall we do our power rankings and then announce the official winners of season 5?
I suppose we shall.
All right. Christy, you go first. What do you got for your last episode?
So at the bottom of the bottom, I have Radzinski.
That beard.
Yeah, gross. Hate him. In the middle of the bottom, I have Ben Linus, because it's crazy to me now that he's allowing himself to be manipulated, and he knows that it's happening.
Yeah.
And then at the top of the bottom, I have the Man in Black.
Ooh.
At the top, in the bottom of the top, I have Jack, because even though he's still being rather selfish, I think that he really is doing what he thinks is a good thing.
Yeah.
So
I would agree with that.
And then in the middle, I have Sawyer, and at the top, I have Juliet. Just because the two of them, their story has been so powerful, and the culmination of everything in this episode was really kind of awesome. I put Juliet and Sawyer in as fuck. I'm not going to really do that. I just wanted to give them more points.
Oh my God! She admits to cheating. I mean, I'd get in on that.
You will sometimes put the same person in 3 times so that they get less points or whatever. So
I have no idea what you're talking about. It's never happened.
I think we had this exact same discussion at the end of last season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to kill the Man in Black.
All right, I'm going to do mine now. Bottom of the bottom, I actually put Jack, because I was a little bit upset that his obsession with Kate is leading to like mass murder, I guess. But I did have him only in the third worst because for the same reasons, Christy, that you ended up putting him in the third best was just, I get it. I believe that Jack's heart is in the right place. But I was slightly peeved at that. It's strange though that I did not have the same reaction to Juliet. We'll get to that in a second. And then, of course, second worst and worst, I have eyebrows and neck beard, Phil and Radzinski. And then at the top, I think what happened was I really struggled. I struggled with finding three people because there were a lot of characters for a lot of good reasons that I wanted to put up there. But when I thought about it, there were two characters that just seemed far and away better. And that was Sawyer, who I have in second, and Juliet, who I have at the top. It does feel sort of like you said, Christy's just like this culmination of their story and the way that they spoke to each other. And I understand Juliet was dealing with some insecurity, but also understanding that. And just the fact that she was like such a badass to pick up a rock and smash a nuke. I just, absolutely incredible. And then Sawyer, again, his scene, just both of their scenes when she's being pulled down there, the acting from the two of them is incredible and intense. And I want to also think about, like, we are watching this as a complete moment, but that's not how they filmed this. They're not filmed doing that. You know, the upshots, you're getting Sawyer just looking at a camera, and the same with her looking at a camera while she's doing this. And the way that they made me feel this scene, knowing that it's not real, I was impressed with the two of them. So that's why they're at my top. I am going to bang Richard Alpert because he's hot. And I'm going to kill the man in black because what the fuck, dude? What is going on? Why are you manipulating everyone on the island into killing Jacob? And why do I feel like the next season is going to open with you massacring everyone that was on Ajira 316? Like, I'm not digging you right now, Man in Black, even though he's also kind of hot. I'm a sucker for the salt and pepper hair. And he's on Ben's favorite show, Deadwood. So those are plus points. But yeah, I'm killing him today. How about you, Ben?
Let's see. So for the third worst, I have the Man in Black, though I do appreciate his character because he is sort of a central sort of dynamo in all of everything that's happening.
Yeah, well.
So he's actually a very interesting entity that really kind of pushes the story. Second worst, I've got Ben Linus for the same reasons. Like, his whole kind of whiny bullshit, oh, what about me thing is sort of like, you've been manipulating people on this island for 35 years. You have been murderous. You have been all of these things. Has it all just been because you didn't have a daddy that loved you? Yeah, that's really what it feels like. What about me? What about me? It all goes back to his dad being kind of a shit.
I mean, that's how we got Trump.
Which means, yeah.
Yeah.
Which means I feel for him. But at the same time, I feel like through all of his posturing and bluster, he's not really delivering when it matters.
I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. I do feel like I can see his motivations. It is sad that he's being so manipulated. He doesn't know that yet. But I can also see where, like, finally standing up to, a person that treated you poorly from his perspective. I don't know, though, that I condone murder in that situation. I feel like communication might be better.
Well,
but
the thing is,
I can see why he deserves to be in the bottom. I didn't put him there, but he also didn't make it into my top, which
the thing is, and here's the kind of one of the central holes that I'm finding with him in this is that, like, okay, so his daughter tells him to do anything that John says or she'll fuck him up. But he himself says dead is dead. He knows that you can't come back to life. So he knows that wasn't her. Now, as terrifying as that is, he has to know that that was not his daughter. Therefore, other than it being something, then he would immediately think something's trying to manipulate me. Right?
You're right. Yeah.
I'm trying to walk through his thought processes in this, and I find a hole there, and that's kind of why I'm honestly a little.
He should be smarter than that.
Yeah, you're right.
And I don't know if I'm disappointed in him or if I'm disappointed in that hole in the writing. I can't. It's hard to fish those or get those things apart.
No, because I think if you are disappointed in him, it's not a hole in the writing, because I think they're trying to take you on a little bit of an adventure with Benjamin Linus, where he's up and down, and where now he seems to be making poor decisions. And so I think that's actually good writing, because look what they've done. They've taken a character that you've been pro and turned you against him. Like, that takes good writing to do, I think. Yeah.
Yep. So I've got, for the third best, I've got Miles, actually, because I thought he kind of showed up in the episode. He had a couple like funny lines, and then he also kind of shows up for his old man.
And he's the only one who managed to point out that they were going to cause the incident.
Yeah, exactly. Second best, I've got Sawyer, simply for being a stand-up, trying to be a good person, trying to just make the best of a bad situation. And in the best, I've got Juliet, even though I think her overreaction. So there's a couple things going on here. I think she severely overreacted to the thing with him looking at Kate. Also, the fact that she was flip-flopping multiple times. All of that kind of didn't have to happen. She flip-flops and she takes him to the island, then she flip-flops again just because
she
Kate...
flip-flops because of Kate. Yeah.
Yeah. But in the end, she is doing what she's doing out of love. And she ends up being a total hard ass, and she beats up the guy in the fucking sub, and then in this case, she literally hits a nuke with a rock. So there's a certain ferocity to her that I appreciate, and because of that, and it's kind of a pity fuck, but I'm gonna fuck Juliet. And I'm going to kill that final gunfight sequence. I'm gonna kill the choreographers of the whoever was involved with that unit that filmed that.
Oh my God.
That all needs to go.
Yeah. We're gonna write a bunch of letters. Okay, Derek. What are your rankings for the end of season 5?
So my third worst was Ben Linus for being manipulated into killing Jacob, like everyone else has said.
You both turned against him. Christy, does it feel good?
She's kind of happy. Yeah, a little grin there. Phil, because he fired the first shots of a terrible gun battle. And worst,
Phil
was,
shot first?
Yeah. And then the worst, of course, was Radzinski for all the reasons. I didn't have a third best, but my second best was Sawyer for the same as everyone else said. And of course, my best was Juliet.
Oh, wow. So that's a sweep for Juliet and Sawyer as 1 and 2. We all did the same thing.
I almost had Juliet as my best and my worst.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting, yeah. And I'm going to fuck Juliet, and I'm going to kill the man in black.
Woo! All right, guys. This is it. Benjamin, please announce the losers and the winners of season 5.
Okay. At the bottom, we don't really have any changes. We still have Phil, though he lost a few more points. He's now got negative 56 points. Charles Widmore remains in second place, negative 61 points. He locked that down. And Radzinski takes the bottom with negative 121 points. At the top,
Juliet and Sawyer got a lot of love today. Can Juliet upset? She's already knocked lock.
She's knocked lock?
Yeah.
Knock lock.
She's already knocked lock. Can she do it to Dan?
Well, in third place, falling down from second place, we have Dan Faraday with 81 points.
Oh.
But he did end up in the top 3, even though he was missing from half of this season. So when he was on screen, he did a very good job of
Indeed.
We have Juliet taking the second spot with 89 points.
What?
And our far and away winner of the season, obviously, is Sawyer with 148 points.
Wow.
Yay, Sawyer. Well, that was exciting. All right. Christy, what do you think of the rankings? How they're ending? Are we proud of Sawyer? I think so.
Super proud of Sawyer. And I just want to say that I'm also really happy that Ben Linus ends the season at -5 points.
Oh, she looked it up and you're so happy about it. All right. Well, that's also a win for Christy. And I really I'm loving that it's Sawyer and Juliet at the top because this season was all about their relationship and clearly we liked it. And of course, I love seeing Dan win a medal. Okay. Shall we do some final impressions? Ben.
Yeah.
What'd you think of how this season ended?
I mean, again, I think I talked about this at the end of the last episode, and I think I've touched on it here as well. I do like that they're sort of recasting this entire, because it's been sort of chaotic, right, through the entire episode. There's all this weird shit happening, all these people coming in, and they're jumping through time and all this. But what I feel like they're doing here is they're taking it and they're sort of simplifying it, and they're using the Man in Black and using Jacob as sort of a yin yang, right? It's just sort of a light versus dark, which is typically almost every story comes down to something that simple.
Sure.
But the fact that they're using actual, characters to do it, and that you've got this entity that basically is taking the form of Locke, and which I think was taking the form of Alex and taking the form of some of these other characters. It's kind of a terrifying entity if they can do that. And I think that even though, again, I think some of the flip-flopping that was happening, I understand, with Juliet, why they made her do that. It was almost sort of necessary in order for them to get back to the island, and then for them to actually blow up the bomb. For all that stuff to happen, they really had to fuck with her storyline a lot. They had to fuck with her emotions a lot. I think they made it. They made it believable just by how, but I think it also required sort of that overreaction, which really isn't in character for her. So
I can see that point.
That's really the only thing about this. And then obviously, the gunfight I thought was dumb, but it was still fun. But it was just really, really, really poorly done. The A-Team moment where they show up, come on.
And that's the way I feel about Expose now. After Dave made that case that it's still fun. It's a fun episode, and the gunfight is fun as well.
Yeah,
yeah. Agreed.
But there's also a parallel between what's going on in the past and the future here. In the past, we see Ben stabs Jacob, and then in the present or whatever, he stabs Jacob and then kicks him the Man in Black kicks him into the fire, so he dies by fire. And then back in the 1970s, we have our entire cast who's all been sent there by the island, or to the island, by Jacob, also supposedly dying in a pillar of fire. I mean, the nuke did go off, so everything ends in white. We don't really know what that means, if that triggered them to go back through time, or whether it was just an annihilation. It's hard to say, but there's sort of a parallel there between what happened to Jacob in the present to what happened to them in the past. So it's definitely sort of wiping the slate, which means that going into the next season, who the fuck knows how it's going to start? They kind of made everything come together to this one point where now they can basically do anything and you can sort of believe it. So, it's really well done. I mean, the entire season was really well done. There was not a whole lot of episodes in season 5 that were they were okay. It was mostly pretty good shit. So,
yeah, season 5 is pretty tight. Yeah. Christy, what'd you think of The Incident Part 2?
I absolutely loved this episode. I watched both of the Part 1 and 2 multiple times, but this one, really was my absolute favorite of the two. Every single time that I watched it, I cried about the same things over and over. And normally when that happens to me, and I'll cry, watching an episode, by the third time I watch it, I'm like, okay, no, I still cried every single time. I got teared up while we were just talking about some of the scenes. I absolutely loved this episode, and I'm super excited for season 6.
I know, me too. I thought the ending of season 5, I thought all of season 5 was great. I thought the ending was shocking and stunning. And like you said, Ben, even after 5 seasons, they've now found a way to like make season 6 feel like the great unknown.
Yeah.
You know, and that is what is like so amazing about the show and about the writers is that they just keep upping the ante and they find a way to keep it fresh and interesting. I thought the dynamic between the man in black, Locke not Locke, Jacob and Ben, I thought it was an incredible scene. I thought it was fascinating to watch Ben just completely fall apart. And, you know, I think that's sort of a lesson in being over focused on something or too determined to really like stop and look around at anything else, because clearly, like, if that thing doesn't happen, this is what happens to you. Like, you're going to fall apart. It's like there needs to be more flexibility, you know, in yourself or in life. And I feel like that's the lesson I get from that scene. Again, eye of the beholder kind of thing. And I think that Lock in a Box to end 2 seasons was fucking brilliant. Like I mentioned, we'll discuss some more whether or not it was too obvious coming to the end of the season. But I thought it was great. I can't wait to see what happens. I mean, I already know. Obviously, I've seen it and I've made the outlines for next season. But I still can't wait to watch it with you guys. I think that it was just a perfect ending to a really stunning season. Derek, why don't you tell us what you thought of the incident part 2, whether or not this episode specifically opened any questions. We will talk about in the bonus episode that you can download right now, your kind of overall season 5 questions or theories for season 6. But what about this episode?
I thought this was a really good episode, and I also thought season 5 was one of the better seasons as well. I mean, the fact that after 5 seasons they can still give you a cliffhanger that's really good is great writing. You know, usually after a few seasons it just gets corny. You know,
yeah,
like, you know. Right. But this one was really good. I mean, I guess you have to use a nuke to do that, but you know. But yeah, we find out that Locke is still in the box, and that the person not Locke is the man in black, and he did this so he could find that loophole to kill Jacob for whatever reason. And and so I have a few questions, like just episode specific is, you know, did Jack's plan succeed? Did it float him forward in time or whatever and bring him to LAX? And also, who are Alana in this group?
Okay. Well,
because they know Ricardo.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, Ricardus.
Ricardus.
Not
yeah.
Ricardo.
I know it's Ricardo.
Okay.
I'll just say, hey, Lucy, okay?
You got some explaining to
do. So, I cannot believe it, but that is it, folks. That is the end of season 5 of Lost. For you cool kids, you can go download the bonus episode. We're talking about fan theories after season 5, fun facts about character rankings. I have added a new category, so get excited for that. And we announced the aggregate. I'm going to talk about the Mandela effect. And I think I've decided I'm actually going to make Christy talk about the butterfly effect.
All right. All right.
Plus, we dive deeper into the time travel of season 5, and of course, Derek's biggest questions before we head into the end of the series. For those of you who don't like the bonus episodes, I don't know why, but this is the end of season 5 of Lost in My 40s. I would like, again, to extend a very special thanks to Dave for returning this season. Caleb and Ado, we missed you. Hope to see you before the podcast ends. Next week, Wednesday, April 24th, we'll be on YouTube. Join us as we chat about the power ranking, medal holders, the best one-liners of season 5, the dead is dead controversy amongst Lost fans, and Of course, I have another terrible fucking joke for you. And then, just 5 weeks later, guys, it's a short hiatus this time. On Wednesday, May 29th, we'll be back on YouTube with more shenanigans for the Season 6 pre-show. Plus, you'll get the Season 6 audio pod, Lost, the final chapter, where we'll discuss what the writers, producers wanted us to know before the series ends. Then, just 1 week after that, Wednesday, June 6th, the final season begins with LAX parts 1 and 2. They are ensemble cast episodes, and they are, of course, Derek's episodes, the last time you'll start a season. And now, I have been holding this in since episode 1 of season 4, when the Flash...
We both did it. That must have smelled
Not
stale.
that.
Yes,
Not
great
that.
minds think alike.
Oh, not
Yes.
that. No, this was when the flash forward was introduced. Derek joked, flashbacks, flash forwards, why not flash sideways? Well, have I got news for you, Derek? Because in the final season, we will get to know the Man in Black and the people at the temple. Plus, we meet Mother. And hold on to your butt, Derek, because season 6 will, in fact, bring us the Flash sideways. Get ready, everybody. The end is near. We'll see you next Wednesday on YouTube, and then we'll be back from hiatus for the last time in May. See you then. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Holding it in for
Foliage.
Jesus.
Lost in My 40s is a Space Bear Media production, executive produced and edited by me, Lacey J. Sound engineering, editing, and original music by Benjamin Trimp. Like and follow Lost in My 40s on Facebook and SpaceBear_Media on Instagram and Threads. Plus, follow Space Bear Media on YouTube for extra video content. Or for everything in one place, go to spacebearmedia.com.